My mother thought my sister could get married at the same venue and on the same date as me without my permission, and then got angry at my answer. My wedding binder had tabs, which is embarrassing to admit because I am not a tab person. I am a throw receipts in a drawer person. I am a drink cold coffee at noon person. I am a where did I put my keys? No, seriously, where are my keys person? But somehow, for my wedding, I became the woman with labeled tabs, fabric samples, printed contracts, and a tiny bag of emergency safety pins in a drawer like I was preparing for war instead of a reception with chicken, cake, and older relatives complaining about the music. My name is Maris, and at the time all of this started, I was 31, living in a quiet town outside a medium-sized city in the Midwest, engaged to a man I loved in the boring, steady way that actually matters. Not boring like dull. Boring like he paid bills on time. Knew how I took my coffee and didn't think emotional avoidance was a personality. After the childhood I had, that felt hotter than any grand romantic gesture. Give me a man who says, I already called the venue and confirmed the chairs, and I will swoon like a Victorian widow. I'm not proud. I'm honest. The wedding was supposed to be the clean part of my life. That sounds dramatic, but I mean it. I had spent most of my childhood feeling like a leftover from a meal nobody wanted to finish. And this wedding, with the lake venue and the soft lights and my dad crying every time he saw a dress photo, felt like proof that I had built something separate. Something mine. Something my mother couldn't walk into and rearrange with that calm little smile of hers. You need to understand my mother before you judge how fast I went from polite to absolutely done. My parents split when I was 5. I don't remember every detail, obviously, but I remember enough. I remember my dad's face looking gray while he packed clothes into a duffel bag. I remember my mother standing in the hallway with her arms crossed like she was waiting for him to hurry up and ruin his own life somewhere else. I remember the man who became my stepfather showing up way too soon after. Not weeks, not months, hours maybe. My kid brain didn't understand cheating, betrayal, affairs, or any of the adult words people use to make selfishness sound organized. I just understood that my dad left crying, and another man came in like he had been waiting outside for his turn. That night, my mother sent me to my room with a bowl of cereal even though it was dinner time. I ate it on the floor because I didn't want to sit at the kitchen table where everything felt wrong. I remember hearing her laugh behind her bedroom door. Not a huge laugh, just a little soft one. That might be the part that stuck. My dad was gone, I was crying into cereal, and she was laughing. When my dad came back a few days later to see me, I wrapped myself around his leg and begged to go with him. I didn't even have a bag packed. I dragged a pillow behind me like that was enough to start a new life. My mother stood in the doorway and said, if that's what she wants, that was it. No fight. No tears. No, please don't take my baby. She just let me go. I lived with my dad and my grandparents for a while after that, in the guest room with the floral curtains and a bed that squeaked every time I moved. My grandma put extra blankets on me every night even when it wasn't cold. My grandpa pretended not to cry when I asked if my mom was mad at me. My dad worked long hours and still made pancakes shaped like blobs on Saturday mornings because he said circles were for quitters. He was exhausted, heartbroken, and probably terrified, but he showed up. My mother remarried fast enough that adults lowered their voices when they talked about it around me, fast enough that I learned early that grown-ups think whispering makes children deaf. Then she had my half-sister, and after that, whatever small space I still had in my mother's life got rented out permanently. I know it sounds ugly to say I never bonded with my sister. I know people love to say siblings are innocent. Babies don't choose the mess they're born into, and all of that is technically true. I'm not saying she did anything wrong as a baby. She was just there. She was there in the house that used to be mine, in the family pictures that stopped including me, in the Christmas pajamas I never got, in the bedtime stories my mother apparently did know how to read when she felt like it. Every visit to that house felt like walking into a play where my role had been cut, but nobody had told me to leave the stage. My stepfather didn't hate me loudly. Honestly, that might have been easier. He ignored me in that clean, efficient way people ignore a chair they don't like. He bought my sister little dresses and toys and later dance lessons and a car to learn in. While I got comments like, "Your father handles your needs, right?" my mother would say, "Don't be sensitive," if I got quiet. I learned to stop asking for anything there. Not snacks, not help, not rides, not attention, especially not attention. My dad eventually got his own small house near my grandparents. Years later, he married my stepmother, and I know some people hate that word, but I don't. My stepmother saved that word for me. She came into my life carefully. She didn't try to replace anybody. She didn't call herself my bonus mom or ask me to make a speech at her wedding. She just showed up with soup when I had the flu, remembered that I hated mushrooms, sat beside me during school concerts, and once drove across town at night because I called crying after my mother forgot my birthday. She didn't even trash talk my mother. She just said, "You deserved better today," and let me cry in her car. So when I say my wedding planning felt like healing, I mean my dad and stepmother were there for every normal little thing my mother had skipped. My stepmother helped me compare invitations. My dad offered to pay for more than I was comfortable accepting, and I pushed back because I have pride issues the size of furniture. He looked at me and said, "Let me do this. I missed enough." Tell me what you say to that without becoming a puddle. Exactly. You don't. The venue was a lodge-style place by a lake. Not fancy in a celebrity way, just warm and pretty. Wood beams, big windows, a stone fireplace, a deck overlooking the water. The kind of place that makes middle-aged aunties say, "Oh, this is nice," in a voice that means they are mentally judging the bathrooms. My fiancé loved it because it had enough parking and didn't smell like old carpet. Again, romance. We booked it more than a year ahead. We paid deposits. We chose a late afternoon ceremony because I wanted the light over the water, and also because I am not a morning bride. Nobody needs to see me make lifelong vows before coffee. We planned the dinner, the music, the flowers, the seating chart, the hotel block, everything. My stepmother and I had a shared folder full of notes. My dad kept pretending he didn't care about napkin colors, and then would randomly say things like, "The sage ones look calmer." He was invested. Deeply. Aggressively. Sweetly. I told my mother about the engagement because I'm not a monster. Or maybe because a small, stupid part of me still wanted her to act like a mother. She sounded happy enough. "That's wonderful," she said. "Send me the date when you know it." That was pretty much the whole emotional fireworks show. No crying. No, "My baby is getting married." No offer to help. She asked what my sister thought of the ring, which was weird because my sister hadn't seen it, and we didn't talk. But I brushed it off. I had gotten good at brushing. If emotional neglect were a sport, I'd have trophies. For months. Everything stayed calm. Suspiciously calm, now that I think about it, but at the time I was busy. I worked as an office manager at a dental clinic, which meant I spent my days handling schedules, insurance calls, irritated patients, broken printers, and people who thought "I'm running a little late" meant I will arrive 40 minutes after my appointment with a smoothie. Wedding planning happened in the cracks of real life. I answered vendor emails during lunch. I picked songs while folding laundry. I cried once because the caterer changed the salad option, which was not about the salad, obviously, but try telling that to me at 10 at night in sweatpants. 2 months before the wedding, I was sitting at our kitchen table with the binder open, eating cereal from a mug because all bowls were in the dishwasher, when my mother called. Her voice had that bright little edge people use when they are trying to sound casual about something they have rehearsed. "Sweetheart," she said, and I immediately felt my spine tighten because she only called me sweetheart when she wanted something. "Hi, Mom. I have happy news." For 1 second, I thought maybe she was going to say she had finally decided to go to therapy. Yes, I am hilarious and delusional. My sister was engaged. I said congratulations, because that is what a decent person says. My sister had been with her boyfriend for a few months. I knew this from random family updates, not because she told me. I had met him maybe twice, and both times he looked like a man who wanted to be liked but wasn't sure what room he had walked into. He worked some kind of warehouse schedule. She worked part-time at a salon, and from what I understood, money was tight. "That's exciting," I said. "Tell her congrats." My mother sighed. Not a sad sigh. A set-up sigh. "She's so happy, Maris. Really happy. But she's also heartbroken." I stared at my cereal mug. "Already?" "She wants a wedding, but they can't afford much right now. You know how things are." I did know how things were. Things were expensive. Rent was stupid. Groceries were acting like luxury items. I knew. But I also knew my mother's tone, and my stomach started doing that old childhood twist, the one that said, "Careful, the floor is about to move." Then she said, "I had a thought." There it was. The sentence that should come with a siren. My mother's idea was that my sister could have a small mourning ceremony at my venue on my wedding day. Just a short thing. Just family. Less than 10 people. Barely noticeable. They would use the same flowers if I was okay with it. Maybe take a few pictures by the lake before my guests arrived, and then they would clear out before my ceremony. My mother said this like she was asking to borrow a serving spoon, not my wedding date, venue, and emotional oxygen. I didn't even answer at first. I actually looked around the kitchen like maybe there was a hidden camera and someone was filming my reaction for a prank show. My fiancé was in the living room, half watching some home repair video with the sound low. I remember him glancing over because my face must have changed. "Maris?" my mother said. "Are you there?" I said, "No. Just no." Beautiful word. Underrated word. Should be taught earlier in schools. She laughed lightly. "Don't react like that. I'm not saying she would take your wedding. It would be separate. On the same day. In the morning. At the same venue. Briefly. Using the place Dad paid deposits on for my wedding." That made her voice cool by half a degree. "Your father isn't the only person in this family." I put the mug down because my hand was shaking. And I didn't want cereal milk on the seating chart. "Mom, I'm not sharing my wedding day." "You're not sharing your marriage, Maris. You're sharing a location for an hour." "No. She's your sister. She's your daughter. That doesn't make her my responsibility." There was a silence. A real one. The kind where you hear someone deciding whether to be hurt or angry. "You've always been hard on her," my mother said. I laughed and it came out meaner than I meant it to. I barely know her. That's exactly my point. I closed my eyes. My fiancé had paused the video now. He was fully watching me, eyebrows pulled together like he wanted to step in but knew this was a minefield with family wallpaper. My mother kept going. She said my sister had always looked up to me. Lie. She said my sister wanted a connection. Also, lie. She said it would be beautiful. Two sisters celebrating love on the same day. Vomit. She said life was short, family was precious, weddings weren't about ownership. I said my wedding is about my fiancé and me. That's who it's about. "Well," she said, and now the sweetness was gone. "I hope you don't regret being this selfish." I hung up. Was that rude? Maybe. Did I care? Not in that moment. I sat there staring at my phone while my fiancé came over and asked what happened. When I told him, he made this face I can only describe as a man trying very hard not to say something disrespectful about his future mother-in-law. "She asked what?" he said. "Morning wedding, same venue, same day, like a breakfast special." He blinked. "That's insane." I almost cried from relief. Not because I needed permission to be angry, but because when you grow up being told your boundaries are cruelty, sometimes hearing a normal person say, "That's insane," feels like being handed a blanket. The next few weeks were a full-time emotional subscription I never signed up for. My mother called, texted, switched numbers, and changed tactics every few days. First, it was soft guilt. Then it was family duty. Then it became accusations about me punishing my sister for a divorce that happened when I was 5. A whole story. That phrase sat in me like a bruise. As if my childhood loneliness had been a creative writing project. As if my mother hadn't made choices and then left me to turn them into something survivable. I told her again that the answer was no. I suggested my sister have a courthouse ceremony, a backyard dinner, a small restaurant gathering, anything realistic. My mother said, "Easy for you to say when your father is paying for your dream." That one got me. I wish I could tell you I responded with mature grace. I did not. I typed, "Maybe if you hadn't built your dream on wreckage, you'd have money for hers." My mother didn't respond for a whole day after that, which felt peaceful until it felt terrifying. I kept checking my phone like an idiot. My fiancé told me to block her for a while. I said I would. Then I didn't. Then I checked again. Then I cried in the bathroom at work because a patient yelled about a bill, and my nervous system decided that was somehow connected to my mother. Very cute. Very stable. My sister texted 2 days later. I hadn't gotten a direct message from her in months. Maybe longer. It said, "I hope your perfect wedding is worth destroying any chance of us being sisters." I stared at that line while sitting in my car outside the grocery store with melting ice cream in the back seat. It was such a dramatic sentence that part of me wanted to admire the effort. Destroying any chance of us being sisters? What chance? The chance we had while she ignored me at family dinners? The chance we had when she posted pictures with captions about being her mother's only real baby? The chance we had when she asked once, at a holiday dinner, if my dad ever got tired of playing victim? That chance. I wrote, "You don't get to claim a relationship only when you need my venue." Then I blocked her. That felt good for about 12 minutes. Then my mother sent a screenshot of my message back to me and wrote, "Cruel. Absolutely cruel." I blocked her too. For 3 days, silence. Real silence. My fiancé and I started breathing again. We went to a cake tasting. We argued about whether a certain filling tasted like lemon or furniture polish. We mailed a few late invitations. My stepmother came over to help me organize place cards, And I told her everything because I couldn't keep carrying it like a hot pan. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "You are allowed to have one day that doesn't belong to them." I burst into tears so fast she looked startled. "I know," I said, wiping my face with a napkin because tissues were somehow never where I needed them. "I know that. I do. I just hate that I still feel mean." She squeezed my hand. "That's because they trained you to think peace means giving in." That sentence has lived in my head ever since. My dad was less gentle. He called my mother himself, which I didn't ask him to do, and later told me only the clean version. The clean version was that he had told her the venue was booked for my wedding, paid for through my contracts, and not available for anyone else. The dirty version, which my stepmother gave me with raised eyebrows, included him saying, "You don't get to use the daughter you abandoned as a coupon." I love that man. Flaws and all. My mother did not take that well. Instead of backing off, she changed routes. Since I had blocked her and my sister, she went around me. She found my fiancé's number from an old group message about a family cookout and called him while he was at work. He told me about it that evening, before I even took off my shoes. He had that careful face people use when they know they're holding a grenade with a bow on it. "Your mom called me." I just stood there in the entryway with my purse still on my shoulder. Of course she did. She was crying. Of course she was. He said she told him I was overwhelmed and reacting from childhood pain. She said my sister was heartbroken. She said I might listen to him because I trusted his calmness, which made me want to chew drywall. She asked if he could convince me to shift our ceremony later so my sister could use the morning. She said it would show everyone what a generous man he was marrying into the family. I said, "She tried to flatter you into stealing my wedding from me?" He nodded slowly. "Pretty much." And I told her I wasn't making decisions behind your back. I dropped my purse. Just dropped it. Keys, lip balm, old receipts, everything spilled onto the floor, and I started crying again because apparently my body had decided tears were the house special that month. He came over and hugged me. "Hey, I didn't even consider it." "I know," I said into his shirt. "I know. It's just that she thought you might." That was the part. My mother knew me well enough to know where to press, but she didn't know my relationship well enough to understand it wouldn't work, or maybe she did and tried anyway. That might be worse. I unblocked her just long enough to call. She answered like nothing had happened, all breathy and wounded. "You called my fiancé behind my back," I said. "I was trying to help you see reason." "No. You were trying to manipulate him." "That's a terrible accusation." "It's an accurate one." She started crying. I didn't move. I didn't soften. I sat at the kitchen table with my fiancé across from me, his hand resting near mine but not touching, letting me choose. My mother said, "I am your mother." I said, "Then act like it." She went quiet. I told her if she contacted him again, or any vendor, or anyone connected to my wedding, she would not be welcome there. I said it clearly. No yelling, no shaky voice. Very proud of myself for that one. Small miracles. She whispered, "You would ban your own mother from your wedding?" I said, "Yes." And then I blocked her again. Here is the funny thing about boundaries. People who respect them hear them once. People who don't respect them treat them like the opening offer in a negotiation. My mother heard, "You'll be banned," and apparently thought, "Interesting. Let's test the fence." About 3 weeks before the wedding, my aunt called me. She is my mother's sister, but she is the kind of aunt who always sounds like she has gossip in one hand and a cigarette she quit smoking 10 years ago in the other. She said, "Honey, I'm confused." That sentence has never led anywhere peaceful. She had received a wedding invitation for my sister. Same date, same venue, morning ceremony, reception to follow. Not less than 10 people. Not a tiny private thing. A real invitation. Printed, mailed, with my lake venue listed like it belonged to them. I felt all the blood leave my face. There it was. My venue's name, my date, my sister's name, her fiancé's name. A pretty little design with a fake soft phrase about families coming together. I stared at that phrase until it blurred. Families coming together. Sure. Like a pileup on the highway. My fiancé was at work. My dad was at a doctor appointment. My stepmother didn't answer. So I did the thing I shouldn't have done alone. I drove to my aunt's house, picked up the physical invitation, and then drove straight to my mother's. I know. Bad idea. But rage makes you efficient, not wise. My mother opened the door, saw my face, and actually stepped back. My stepfather appeared behind her with that annoyed look he always wore around me, like I was a bill that had arrived late. I held up the invitation. Explain. My mother's mouth opened, closed, opened again. She looked older suddenly. Not frail, just caught. My stepfather said, "Don't come here waving paper at your mother." I ignored him. "You sent invitations." My mother said, "Your sister sent them. Using the venue I told you no about. She believed you'd come around." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because my brain had run out of appropriate sounds. "You believed I'd come around," I said. "Don't put this on her like she printed these in a vacuum." My mother's eyes filled with tears. There it was. The old weapon. Soft face, wet eyes, helpless voice. She admitted she had told my sister I would eventually agree. She said my sister had been crying every night. She said my stepfather was stressed because deposits had been placed for a dress and a small brunch caterer. She said once the invitations went out, she thought I would understand that canceling would humiliate everyone. I said, "So your plan was to trap me?" "No," she said quickly. "It was to make you see what your refusal was doing." My stepfather stepped forward. "You have always punished this family because your father poisoned you." I turned to him slowly. "Careful." He said my mother had made mistakes, but so had my father. He said I had spent my life acting like I was too good for their home. He said my sister just wanted one beautiful day and I was hoarding mine out of bitterness. He said my dad had spoiled me, and now I thought love meant money. I wish I could say I stayed calm. I did not. I told him he didn't get to lecture me about family when he walked into mine before the bed was cold. Yes, I said it like that. Yes, my mother gasped. Yes, it was ugly. No, I don't fully regret it. I don't. My stepfather's face turned red. You disrespectful little... My mother cut him off, but not because she was defending me, because the neighbors might hear. That has always been her priority. Not harm, appearance. I told them the invitation was fraudulent. I told them I was calling the venue immediately. I told them neither of them, nor my sister, would be allowed at my wedding unless I lost my mind between now and then, which seemed unlikely but not impossible given the company. My mother started sobbing. "Please don't do this. Please. You'll ruin her." I said, "You did this. She'll be humiliated. Good. Maybe humiliation will teach her to stop building plans on other people's property." My mother looked at me like I had slapped her. I left before I said worse. Because I wanted to. Oh, I wanted to. There were years of words lined up in my throat. Every forgotten birthday. Every cold visit. Every time I watched her mother my sister with both hands while I stood there holding my own little broken heart like a lunch tray. But I knew if I kept going, she would turn my pain into proof that I was unstable. So I walked out. In the car, I shook so hard I couldn't drive for 10 minutes. I called my fiancé, and when he answered, I said, "They sent invitations." And then I started sobbing in the parking lane like an absolute disaster. He left work early. My dad called the venue. My stepmother came over with dinner none of us ate. The venue manager, bless that woman and her no-nonsense voice, confirmed that no other event was booked and nobody but me, my fiancé, my dad, or my stepmother could make changes. She put a password on the account. A password. For a wedding venue? Like I was protecting a bank vault from my own mother? The password was the name of my childhood dog because my mother never cared enough to remember it. Petty? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. My dad also paid for security at the venue. I hated that. I hated that my wedding needed a guest list and a do not enter list. I hated that my fiancé had to discuss doors and checkpoints when he should have been worrying about vows. I hated that my dad looked guilty even though none of this was his fault. Relatives started calling after that. Some were confused. Some were sympathetic. Some had opinions they should have swallowed. One cousin said, "Couldn't you just let her have the morning? You'll still have the afternoon." I said, "Would you let someone move into your apartment for the morning because they liked your lease?" He said that wasn't the same. I said, "It is to me." He didn't call again. Another aunt, not the one who warned me, said my sister was young and impulsive and my mother had clearly mishandled things, but family should find a way forward. I asked if the way forward involved me giving up my wedding date, venue, flowers, and sanity. She said I was being dramatic. I said, "Then enjoy the drama from home," and hung up. Again, not my finest diplomacy, but at some point, diplomacy becomes self-harm. My sister tried contacting me through a new number. The message said, "You win. I hope it feels good." I didn't answer. Then she sent another. "He thinks you're cold, by the way. My fiancé said he can't believe the man you're marrying still wants to go through with it." That one landed for about half a second before I realized what she was doing. She wanted me to defend myself. She wanted me to ask who said what. She wanted a crack. I blocked the number. My mother showed up at my house 6 days before the wedding. I saw her through the little window beside the door, standing on my porch with a tissue ball in her hand. She looked small. That was the worst part. Manipulative people don't always look powerful. Sometimes they look sad. And if you are trained badly enough, sadness starts to feel like a bill with your name on it. I didn't open the door. She knocked, then rang the bell, then knocked again. My fiancé stood behind me, silent. He didn't tell me what to do. He just stayed there. My mother said through the door, "Maris, please, I'm begging you." My hand was on the lock. I wanted my mother, not the woman outside, the mother I had invented when I was little, the one who would say she was sorry and mean it, the one who would choose me without needing to be cornered first. For 1 second, I almost opened the door for a ghost. Then she said, "Your sister can't stop crying." And just like that, the ghost vanished. Not, "I hurt you," not, "I'm sorry," not, "I should never have done this." Still my sister. Always my sister. My pain was just the road she used to reach her real child. I stepped back from the door. My fiancé put his hand on my shoulder. My mother cried for a few minutes, then left. I watched her car pull away and felt something in me go quiet. Not healed, just quiet. The wedding day arrived with bright sun, cool air, and my nervous stomach acting like it had a personal vendetta. I woke up at dawn even though I had planned to sleep in. My fiancé had stayed with his brother the night before because we were doing the traditional thing, which felt silly and sweet. My stepmother was already texting me reminders to eat. My dad sent a message that said, "Today is yours. Breathe." I cried over that. Then got mascara on my robe before I even had makeup on, which felt on brand. At the venue, everything looked exactly the way I had imagined. The lake was gray-blue under the morning light. The chairs were lined up. The flowers were simple and pretty. The staff moved around calmly like they were used to people having emotional crises near centerpieces. Security stood near the entrance, dressed politely enough that most guests probably thought they were just venue employees. That helped. I didn't want my wedding to feel like a nightclub with vows. My stepmother came into the getting ready room while the makeup artist was fixing the corner of my eye. I made a face because if she made me cry again, the makeup artist might file a complaint. "Don't start." I'm allowed one emotional comment. "One." She smiled. "You deserved this day." That was the comment. That was the one that almost took me out. My dad walked in after a little knock, saw me, and immediately turned around. "Dad? I need a second," he said, facing the wall. I laughed and cried at the same time. Very elegant, very bridal. He turned back with red eyes and said, "Okay, I'm fine." He was not fine. None of us were fine. But we were happy, which is different. Before the ceremony, the venue manager quietly told me there had been no attempted entry from my mother's side. No scene, no drama, no one trying to crash the morning. I nodded like I was relieved because I was, but another part of me felt hollow. Isn't that stupid? I didn't want her there, but some little leftover child in me noticed she hadn't tried hard enough to show up for me. Trauma is annoying like that. It will complain about the weather in a house you set on fire yourself. My dad walked me down the aisle. My fiancé looked at me like I was the only person on earth, and for once, I let myself believe it. I didn't search for my mother's face in the chairs. Well, okay, I did once. The chair originally meant for her was filled by one of my dad's cousins because I refused to leave empty spaces for people who had already emptied enough. That helped. The ceremony was beautiful in the way small, honest things are beautiful. My fiancé's voice shook during his vows. Mine did too. I made one joke I don't remember, and people laughed. The lake shimmered behind us. My grandparents held hands. My stepmother cried openly and pretended she had allergies. My dad looked like he was trying not to collapse from pride and relief. And nobody stole the day. That sounds simple, but it was everything. The reception felt like exhaling after holding my breath for years. People danced badly. The food was good. My dad gave a speech that made everyone cry without mentioning my mother once, which was a mercy. My husband's brother told an embarrassing story involving a broken sink and panic. My stepmother fixed my bustle 3 times and finally said, "This dress has more engineering than my car." I laughed so hard my ribs hurt. At one point, I went outside onto the deck alone. Not dramatically. I just needed air. The music was muffled behind the doors, and the lake was dark now, lights reflecting on it in little shaky lines. I stood there holding a glass of water because I had learned the hard way that champagne and family trauma are not a team. My husband found me. "You okay?" I leaned against him. "Yeah, I think I am. Do you miss her?" I hated how gently he asked, I hated that the answer wasn't clean. I miss who I needed her to be, I said, not who she is. For almost 2 days after the wedding, we lived in a bubble. Then the fallout started because my sister's wedding had to be canceled once everyone learned there had never been a real booking. Her fiancé was furious. Her friends were confused. And my mother tried to call the whole thing a venue issue, which was a generous name for attempted emotional burglary. I wanted to reply, some people will mail invitations to stolen venues, but my stepmother convinced me not to. Barely. She took my phone. Actually took it. I'm 31 and had my phone confiscated like a teenager because I cannot be trusted when provoked. Fair. From what I heard, his anger wasn't aimed at me. It was aimed at her. He had apparently believed my mother's version that I was being difficult, but would eventually agree. When he realized there had never been permission, he felt humiliated in front of his family. His mother called my aunt to ask what was going on, and my aunt told the truth because my aunt lives for truth when it comes with a side of chaos. The whole thing became a mess of phone calls, blame, tears, and canceled brunch deposits. Did I feel bad? Sometimes. Not enough to fix it, but enough to sit with the ugly feeling that my sister's embarrassment was real, even if she helped create it. That's the thing people don't admit about consequences. You can believe someone deserves them and still feel weird watching them happen. My husband and I were supposed to fly out for our honeymoon the following Tuesday. We chose a warm beach place not because we were fancy, but because we were tired and wanted to sit near water without anyone asking us to share it with a sibling. We had saved for it ourselves. My dad offered to help, and I said no because I wanted at least one major wedding thing to feel fully ours. Also, I did not want my mother later claiming my dad had funded my entire adult life, including sunscreen. She would. You know she would. The night before the flight, my dad called. His voice sounded like he had swallowed gravel. Your mother called me. I sat down on the edge of the bed. No. My husband looked up from folding shirts. What? I put the phone on speaker because I was done being the only witness to insanity. My dad said my mother had asked him to convince me to take my sister on our honeymoon. I need you to sit with that for a second because I had to. My honeymoon, with my husband, the one I had married 2 days earlier. My mother wanted me to bring my adult half-sister along as compensation because her own wedding had been canceled. My husband stopped folding a shirt halfway through and just stood there holding it like his brain had disconnected. I said, Dad, please tell me you misunderstood. I wish I had. Apparently, my mother argued that since my sister had lost her wedding, she deserved something joyful. She said my husband and I were already going somewhere beautiful and could afford to include one more person. She said my sister needed healing. She said I owed her a gesture after publicly humiliating her. My dad told her, in language he refused to repeat, that she had lost touch with reality. He also told her that if she kept pushing, she would lose whatever microscopic chance she had of ever having a relationship with me. What did she say? I asked. My dad went quiet for a second. She said I was turning you against your own sister. Then she hung up on me. After we hung up, my husband and I stared at each other. Husband. That word still felt new and weird and warm. He put the shirt down very carefully. So, he said, do we need to put a password on the honeymoon too? I laughed, then cried, then laughed again. Marriage is glamorous. We joked about it that night because joking was the only alternative to screaming. We imagined my sister standing between us on the beach asking who got the window side of the cabana. We imagined my mother sending a packing list. We imagined the airline agent trying to process emotional compensation passenger as a ticket class. Then my husband got serious. Do you think they'll show up at the airport? I said no too fast. He gave me a look. I don't know, I admitted. I don't think they're that bold. The universe heard that and said, adorable. The next morning we left early, earlier than planned. My husband suggested it, and I agreed because after the venue situation, caution felt less paranoid and more like basic hygiene. I wore leggings, a sweatshirt, and the expression of a woman who had not slept properly in a month. We parked, checked our bags, and moved toward security with coffee in hand. That's when I saw them. My mother and my sister were near the international departures area, scanning faces. My sister had a suitcase, a full suitcase, not a purse, not a dramatic tote, a suitcase. My mother had one hand on her arm like they were waiting for a rescue boat. I stopped so abruptly my husband bumped into me. What? He said. I didn't answer. I just tilted my head. He saw them. His whole face changed. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Not because I was afraid they would physically stop us. This wasn't a movie. They weren't going to tackle us at the airport or chain themselves to our luggage. It was worse in a smaller way. They had come to make a scene, to cry, to beg, to force me to be cruel in public or generous against my will. They had counted on my shame being stronger than my anger. My sister looked pale and determined. My mother looked nervous, like maybe even she knew this was unhinged but had already driven too far to turn back. My husband leaned close. "Don't look at them too long." "They have a suitcase," I whispered. "I see that." "A suitcase." "I know. There are moments so absurd that your feelings can't line up properly." I was angry, humiliated, sad, and weirdly impressed by the commitment. Who wakes up early, packs a bag, and goes to the airport hoping to third-wheel a honeymoon they were not invited to? My family, apparently, put that on a crest. They hadn't seen us yet. My husband took my hand and guided me behind a group of travelers moving toward another security entrance. We didn't run. Running would have been dramatic, and also I had a coffee. We just moved quickly, heads down, like two spies in very comfortable pants. My phone started buzzing before we reached the line. Unknown number. Then again. Then my dad. I answered my dad. "Where are you?" he asked. "At the airport. We saw them." He cursed. My dad rarely cursed around me, so when he did, it felt like a weather alert. "They called me," he said. "Your mother said they were there to talk before you left. I told her to leave. We're not talking." "Good. Go through security." My mother's unknown number called again. My sister texted from another new number. "Please don't make this harder than it has to be." I stared at the message. I wanted to reply, "It doesn't have to be anything." I wanted to send a picture of the security line. I wanted to say every cruel thing. Instead, I handed my phone to my husband. "Block," I said. He blocked the number. No speech, no lecture. Just block. We made it through security without being seen, at least as far as I know. Once we were near our gate, I finally let myself breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I spilled coffee on my sleeve. My husband took the cup away and said, "Okay, no more hot liquids for the emotionally unstable." I laughed too loudly, and a woman nearby looked at me. I didn't care. When the plane took off, I cried. Quietly, face turned toward the window, pretending the clouds were very moving. My husband held my hand under the little tray table. He didn't tell me not to cry. He didn't say, "Forget them." He knew you don't just forget the people who taught your nervous system how to panic. The honeymoon was beautiful. Not magically healing, because that's not how this works, but beautiful. We slept late. We ate too much. We sat by water. We turned our phones off for long stretches. Every now and then, one of us would say, "Do you think they're still at the airport?" And the other would make a joke. I imagined my mother haunting baggage claim with a granola bar, still convinced I would come back and apologize. My husband said my sister probably tried to check herself as emotional luggage. It was mean. We laughed. We needed to. Halfway through the trip, I checked messages because I had to make sure no actual emergency had happened. My dad had sent one message. "Handled. Enjoy your trip." My stepmother sent a picture of our leftover wedding cake in her fridge with the caption, "Guarding this with my life." My aunt sent nothing, which meant either she was behaving or gathering evidence. With her, it could go either way. There were several blocked voicemail notifications from unknown numbers. I didn't listen. That was new for me. Old me would have listened, then spiraled, then ruined an afternoon by arguing with imaginary versions of my mother in my head. Honeymoon me put the phone down and went swimming. Growth, but make it chlorine. When we flew home, we joked about seeing them waiting with signs. They weren't. The airport was just an airport again. People dragging bags, kids crying, someone eating a sandwich with intense sadness. Normal. For about a week after we got back, things were quiet. My husband returned to work. I returned to the dental clinic where one of the hygienists gave me a mug that said "newlywed" in glittery letters, which immediately began shedding sparkles on my desk like a craft store crime scene. Patients asked about the wedding. I smiled and said it was wonderful. I did not say, "My mother tried to lend my honeymoon to my sister," because there is no casual way to drop that between confirming insurance coverage and scheduling a cleaning. That evening, when I got home, my husband was standing in the kitchen with his phone in his hand. He looked so serious that my stomach dropped. "Sit down," he said. "No, nobody's dead." "Then don't start with sit down." He took a breath and handed me the phone. The messages were from my sister. Not from a new number this time. From a messaging app profile using her real picture, because subtlety had apparently left the building. The first message was almost polite. She said she hoped he was doing okay after everything Maris put everyone through. Then she said she knew I could be cold when I felt threatened. Then she said he deserved someone who appreciated his patience. Then the messages got worse. She said she had always thought he was kind. She said she noticed how he looked at her at family gatherings. He had not looked at her at family gatherings. He barely knew where she sat. She said she was sorry my wedding had been built on hurting people. She said she wouldn't treat him like a prize to show off. Then came a photo. Not naked. Not explicit enough to make this some giant scandal. Just suggestive. Posed. Deliberate. The kind of picture a person sends when they want plausible deniability but also want to be very clear. My sister in a tight dress, looking at the camera like she was auditioning for the role of unwell. I felt my face go hot. There are jealousies you expect in life, and jealousies that feel so stupid you're embarrassed to have them. This was both. I trusted my husband. Completely. He had shown me the messages immediately. He hadn't replied. He looked like he wanted to disinfect his phone, but my body didn't care about logic at first. My body heard, "Your sister is trying to take this too," and went straight back to that little girl with cereal on the floor. I said, "She wants my husband now." My husband said, "She wants a reaction. She sent you a thirst trap." He made a pained face. "Please never call it that again." I almost laughed, which made me angrier because how dare anything be funny. I scrolled. There were more. She wrote, "You don't have to answer. I just wanted you to know not everyone sees you as an accessory to her perfect life." She wrote, "I'm not like her." She wrote, "I know what it feels like to be overlooked too." That last one made something in me snap. Overlooked? My sister? The golden child? The baby? The one with framed school pictures in my mother's hallway while mine were in a box at my dad's? The one whose disappointment became a family emergency? She wanted to cosplay neglect now because it made her flirtation sound deep? I took the phone and typed. My husband said, "Maurice?" I said, "No." He said, "Maybe don't." I said, "I am absolutely going to." Was that mature? No. Was it satisfying? Unfortunately, yes. From his phone, I wrote, "This is Maurice. My husband showed me every message because unlike some people, he understands what marriage means. You tried to take my wedding, then my honeymoon, and now you're trying to flirt with my husband like a rejected reality show contestant. It's embarrassing. Stop trying to move into a life you didn't build." I stared at it. My husband said softly, "That's a lot." She earned a lot. I added, "We're blocking you. Get help." Then I sent it. She started typing immediately. I saw the little dots pop up, vanish, pop up again. My husband took the phone, blocked her, and set it on the counter. Then I cried. Not pretty crying, angry crying. The kind where your nose gets involved and nobody wins. "I hate her," I said. My husband pulled me into his arms. "I know. I hate that she can still make me feel like I'm fighting for scraps." "You're not." "I know I'm not. That's the stupid part. I know. And I still feel it." He held me tighter. Feelings aren't court testimony. They don't have to be logical. I married well. Have I mentioned that? The next morning, my mother called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered because I was half asleep and thought it was the clinic. Rookie mistake. She didn't say hello. She said, "How could you humiliate your sister like that?" I sat up in bed so fast my neck cracked. "Excuse me?" She is devastated. I looked at my sleeping husband, who had one arm over his face like a man who had no idea the circus had reopened. I got out of bed and went to the hallway. "Your daughter sent messages to my husband. She was emotional. She sent him a photo. She says it wasn't like that." I actually laughed. Quietly, dangerously. "Mom, I saw it. She feels rejected by everyone. She made a mistake. A mistake is sending a text to the wrong person. This was a campaign." My mother lowered her voice. "You have everything. Why are you so threatened by her?" There it was. The rotten little core. Why are you threatened? Not why did she do that? Not, I'm sorry. Not, I raised her to think your life was available to her, and maybe that's my fault. No, I was the jealous one. I was the problem for reacting to the theft attempt, the honeymoon ambush, and now the husband fishing expedition. I said, "You really don't hear yourself. I hear my daughter in pain. You have 2 daughters." Silence. I hadn't planned to say that. It came out before I could dress it up. For a second, the hallway felt too narrow. My mother said, "That's unfair." "No," I said. "It's the first fair thing I've said in years." She started crying again. I didn't hang up. I let her cry. Not because I felt bad, because I wanted to know if anything real would come after it. Finally, she said, "I don't know how to fix this." There it was. The closest she had ever come to sounding lost instead of strategic. Old me would have rushed in. Old me would have said, "It's okay." Old me would have given her instructions. comfort, a roadmap, a pillow. Old me had done unpaid emotional labor for people who still thought I was selfish. New me stood in my hallway in bare feet and said, "I'm not going to teach you how to be my mother." She inhaled sharply. I said, "If you ever figure it out, do it far away from me first." Then I hung up. That should have been the end. It wasn't, but it was the end of me participating. My sister's relationship didn't survive long after the messaging incident. I heard that through my aunt, who pretended she was just updating me, but was clearly thriving. Her fiancé ended things after someone showed him screenshots. Not the photo, thank God, but enough. He had already been embarrassed by the fake wedding invitations and the airport stunt, and the messages to my husband finished whatever trust was left. My mother blamed me for that too, naturally. If my sister tripped over a rug, I'm sure my name would appear in the police report. My sister posted about betrayal again, then about healing, then about fake women who tear other women down. Then she deleted everything and made her profile private. I know because people told me, not because I checked. Okay, I checked once from a burner profile I made in a moment of weakness. Don't look at me like that. I'm not a saint. I saw one vague quote, felt pathetic, logged out, and made myself fold laundry as punishment. I did start therapy after that, partly because I was tired of my mother living in my head without paying rent. The therapist did not gasp, which I respected, but she did say the whole thing sounded like entitlement dressed up as family. That was enough for me. A few months after the wedding, my mother sent a letter. Actual paper. Through the mail. Very vintage manipulation. I recognized her handwriting and almost threw it away unopened. Then I didn't. Then I put it in a drawer. Then I took it out. Then I put it back. My husband said, "You don't have to read it." I said, "I know," while absolutely acting like someone who did not know. I read it alone in my car outside work because apparently that is where I make questionable emotional choices. The letter was 3 pages. It started with, "I'm sorry you feel hurt," which should be illegal. It said she wished things had gone differently. It said she never meant to make me feel replaced. It said my sister had always admired me and didn't know how to show it. It said my stepfather loved me in his own way, which was news to both of us. It said weddings bring out stress in families. It said she hoped one day I would understand a mother's heart is complicated. A mother's heart. I stared at those words while sitting under the harsh parking lot sun, wearing scrubs with a coffee stain on the sleeve, and felt absolutely nothing for a second. Then I felt tired. Not devastated, not furious, just tired. There was no real apology. No, I lied. No, I sent your sister into your wedding like a battering ram. No, I tried to use public pressure to control you. No, I asked your husband to override you. No, I went to the airport with a suitcase because I have lost all sense of proportion. Just soft language spread over hard facts like frosting over mold. I folded the letter and put it back in the envelope. That night, I burned it in the little fire pit in our backyard. Very dramatic, yes, but also practical. We had one of those cheap metal ones and some old sticks. My husband stood beside me with a glass of water in case I accidentally turned emotional closure into a neighborhood emergency. "Do you want to say anything?" he asked. I thought about it. The paper curled and blackened. "No," I said. She wrote enough. After that, the quiet became more real. Not perfect. I still had days where a random memory punched me in the throat. I still got tense around holidays. I still wondered what version of the story my mother told people. I still had dreams where I was back in that old house, hearing her laugh behind the bedroom door while I sat with cereal. Healing is rude because it refuses to move in a straight line. But our marriage got stronger. Not in a cheesy, we survived everything way. More in a, we learned where the leaks are way. My husband learned that when I say I'm fine too quickly, I am probably one inconvenience away from crying in a pantry. I learned that letting someone support me isn't the same as being weak. We learned to make jokes before resentment could grow teeth. We learned that family can be chosen, but also that chosen family still has to take out the trash and pay bills. Very inspiring. Put it on a pillow. A few months later, I saw a wedding photo of myself laughing with my husband while my dad clapped in the background. My aunt said my mother had seen some of the pictures and cried. I didn't feel victorious hearing that. I just felt the heavy little thud of understanding that consequences don't repair what caused them. That night, I told my husband, "I don't want revenge anymore." He glanced at me while driving. "What do you want?" I watched streetlights slide across the windshield. Peace. But not the fake kind where I shut up. He nodded. Real peace is louder at first. Again, I married well. Annoying how emotionally intelligent he is. Makes it harder to be dramatic. The holidays came, and with them came the predictable pressure from relatives who thought time was a magic eraser. My aunt asked if I would consider sending my mother a card. I said no. A cousin said, "It's been months." I said, "Correct." Someone suggested meeting for coffee in a neutral place. I said, "I'm not a court case." My grandmother, my dad's mother, simply said, "Good for you," and passed me mashed potatoes. Queens come in cardigans. My mother sent one gift that year, a ceramic ornament with 2 little painted brides on it. Sisters, I guess. Maybe she thought it was sweet. Maybe she thought it was symbolic. Maybe she thought I would open it and suddenly decide the real tragedy was not letting my sister wear white near my centerpieces. I held it in my hand for a long time, then donated it with a box of other items. Somewhere out there, maybe someone bought it without baggage. I hope they did. My sister sent nothing. That was the best gift she had ever given me. A year after the wedding, my husband and I went back to the lake venue for dinner. They had a public restaurant attached during certain seasons, and I thought it would feel weird, but it didn't. The place looked smaller without wedding emotion inflating it. The deck was the same. The water was the same. The fireplace was the same. I stood near the spot where we had taken pictures and waited for sadness to grab me. It didn't. Instead, I remembered my dad's face, my stepmother's hands on my shoulders, my husband laughing when my veil got caught on a chair, my grandparents dancing off beat, the cake, the flowers, the way the evening felt like mine because I had fought for it. My husband came up beside me. Regrets? I thought about the invitation confrontation, the airport, the message I sent from his phone, which was still probably not therapist approved, the burned letter, the blocked numbers, the relatives who thought I was too harsh. Yes, I said. He looked surprised. I regret not charging my sister a venue rental fee before rejecting her. He burst out laughing, and I grinned because sometimes healing sounds like a bad joke on a deck. Then I got serious. I regret some things I said. I regret how much of me they still had access to. I regret letting them make our wedding stressful. But I don't regret saying no. He nodded. Good. And I don't regret marrying you. Also good, he said. Important detail. We ate dinner by the window. No big revelation. No dramatic closure. Just food, water, and my husband stealing fries from my plate after saying he didn't want any. Marriage. Sometimes people ask if I'll ever talk to my mother again. They ask it like reconciliation is the final boss of maturity. Like the healed version of me should be above boundaries. I don't know. Maybe someday there will be a conversation. Maybe there won't. I'm not making promises to a future version of myself just to comfort people who hate unfinished stories. What I know is this. My mother wanted my wedding to prove I could finally be useful to the family she chose after me. My sister wanted my life because she had been taught that wanting was enough. My stepfather wanted my silence because my existence reminded everyone how the family started. And me, I wanted one day. One ordinary, expensive, emotional, slightly chaotic day where I wasn't the extra child, the bitter one, the difficult one, the girl expected to step aside. I got that day. I got it with security at the door and a password on the venue account, yes, which is not exactly the bridal fantasy sold in magazines. But I got it. I walked down the aisle with my dad. I danced with my husband. I laughed until my face hurt. I stood by the lake and felt, maybe for the first time, that not being chosen by my mother didn't mean I was unchosen. And when my sister tried to reach into my marriage afterward, when my mother tried to turn even that into my fault, I finally understood something I wish I had learned earlier. Some people don't want connection. They want access. Access to your money, your sympathy, your milestones, your patience, your husband, your peace. They call it family because family sounds nicer than entitlement. So no, I didn't share my wedding. I didn't share my honeymoon. I didn't share my husband's attention. I didn't share the life I built after years of feeling like a guest in my own childhood. Maybe that sounds small, but after years of being treated like the extra plate at the table, small ownership felt huge. It felt like closing a door and finally realizing I didn't have to stand there apologizing for the sound it made. For once, I kept something for myself. And honestly, I sleep very well now.